Good evening, everyone, and welcome to GAE Facebook Live. I am Lisa Morgan, a kindergarten teacher in DeKalb County and the president of GAE.
I am Carly Shaw, a middle school science teacher in Fulton County, and I'm the secretary treasurer of GAE.
And I'm Joe Fleming. I represent GAE at the state capitol and the state school board, both which we're meeting today.
Okay, and we should be joined in just a few moments by our vice president, Dr. Sharon Doe. So she'll be popping in with us. So Joe, you said they were meeting today. So tell us what happened.
Yep, a lot going on today. Just to recap, if you've not been following, the Georgia General Assembly is in session. It's a special legislative session called every 10 years to redraw congressional and state legislative lines. Every 10 years, the U.S. Census Department makes a count of the number of people in the U.S., and based on population shifts, they readjust the lines for congressional and state legislative races. They do this to keep roughly an equal number of individuals in each district. Of course, redistricting is a highly partisan activity. The party in power always tries to use it to maximize it to their advantage, and we're seeing that in Georgia as well this year. We believe we've seen the Senate proposal today on what the Senate district maps will look like, proposed by the Senate. The House Republicans have put forth a map on how they would like to see the House maps look. Each chamber generally defers to the other on their own. So the House generally will accept what the Senate has passed for Senate maps, and the Senate will accept what the House has passed for House maps. Probably the biggest contention is going to be over congressional lines. That may take a little bit longer. Again, you've got politics involved in the equation. You've got equity involved in the process. By equity, I mean in this case, equal number of folks in each congressional district. And of course, the Democrats have their own plans too. They produced maps for the state House seat and for the congressional maps too. I don't think I've seen a Democrat map on the state Senate yet. There may be one. And ultimately, these two versions of the maps, the Republican map and the Democrat map, vie for votes. Of course, the party with the majority usually wins that fight. So we can expect that the Republican maps will become law. That session, again, anyway, began today. I will say this on redistricting. Ultimately, it'll be decided by the courts. Redistricting has become a highly litigious matter, with both sides bringing grievances against maps in different scenarios in their states and areas. I feel certain that the Democrats and other groups will file suit against the Republican maps, just as if the situation were reversed. And the Democrat maps have really been drawn in a way that reflect the racial diversity of the state of Georgia. They do increase the number of Democratic seats. They challenge the Republican maps on civil rights grounds, so it'll be interesting to see. But ultimately, the courts will have the final say in whether Georgia maps that are passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor become law. This session, which again is about redistricting, may last 2 weeks, which surprises me a little bit. By now, they've had much of the summer to work on maps. They got some data late from the U.S. Census Department, but once they get their own members in agreement, which is a little bit like herding cats, every individual legislator has their own wish list of what they'd like their district to look like. But once they get that, it's just a question of passing the maps and going home. Now, there are two other issues that are eligible to be called up. These are in the governor's call for a special session. One is a series of tax changes to Georgia law, excuse me, which are required under the American Rescue Plan, which was President Biden's latest COVID relief bill, which, by the way, sent billions to Georgia for public education and to cities and counties as well. So apparently there's some housekeeping that needs to be done with tax law. And then there's a possibility that the issue, which has been in the news up here in Atlanta anyway, about a possible city of Buckhead, will be debated and voted on during this special session. It appears to be allowed under the governor's call. That is a real passionate issue for people on both sides of the aisle, but it would essentially take the Buckhead district out of the city of Atlanta and make it its own city. There are concerns about that. How would it affect public education is one. So we're taking a close look at whatever may come out of that. And of course, it does harm the city of Atlanta. I mean, Buckhead is an area with a strong tax base, a contributing part to the city in terms of revenue and taxes. And the loss of that to the city could be significant. So that's a real hot button issue as well that may come up this session.
Joe, talking about that, it's my understanding that no new city school districts can be formed. So if a city of Buckhead is created, they cannot form their own school district. So would the schools in that area then become part of Fulton County? Is that one of the possibilities? I mean, what would happen with it? They can't have their own school district.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lisa. I think some of the proposals would keep the schools and the students in the Buckhead, city of Buckhead, if that's what comes to be, in the Fulton County system, or in this case, the Atlanta city system.
Okay.
But I think they've got to develop some language that makes that really makes that clear and dots the T's and dots the T's and whatever that old saying is, crosses the T's and dots the I's. Good grief. But yeah, no, it's a real concern, and you know, our focus at GAE is going to be on the schools and the students in this case, and whether there is an unintended consequence or an intended consequence, but a negative consequence nonetheless to the teachers that teach in that area and students that go to school in that area.
It will be interesting. That a lot of times things that happen in politics don't make a lot of sense to me. And totally right. Becoming your own city, but staying in the city of Atlanta school system, that's just one of those, what? You know,
so you've probably been through it before, you know more about it in the past. There have been efforts in the past to try to get school systems to merge.
Right.
I guess in the name of efficiency and cost savings, but people don't like giving up their own local district and merging with another county or a city school in that district. So, yeah. You know, who knows? Maybe behind the scenes there's some deal making going on, and as a part of this, they can create their own school system and get somebody else to merge to avoid that cap in state law on the number of school districts. But yeah, it definitely is an issue that we're going to be following and making sure that that our constituents are served correctly in this process.
Our students,
yeah.
Ultimately, that's ultimately who it's about. Our students. So we don't know how long this session will go for. We don't know how long it will be. But you said they can. I just want to make sure we know that the only things that can be brought up are the things that are what the governor said. This is why we're calling a special session. That's
correct. And that would be redistricting, redrawing the lines, tax matters that relate to the American Rescue Plan, and the possibility of a Buckhead city.
Okay.
Anything else can't be voted on in the sense that it can't become law. Now, there are committees that are meeting, transportation committee is meeting, Education, I understand, is going to be meeting. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay. But regular committees are meeting to at least have discussions about issues. They might even be able to amend bills in committee, but they can't pass it out of committee, and it can't be considered for floor action until the regular session, which begins the second Monday in January. I think that's January 10th.
But they could prepare something,
right,
to be released for the floor as soon as the session starts by meeting now. So we
believe that's correct. Yeah.
On our toes. Okay.
So we were told, for example, today by a couple of members on the House Education Committee that the House Education Committee will meet. We were not told what the topic would be or what subject or what action would be taken. One member suggested the House Education Committee might meet just to, as a snapshot in time of how state education is going, graduation rates, enrollment, just kind of a look at where we are in time, and data related to that. There have been other suggestions that there might be a bill coming, which is being framed as a, quote, parental rights type legislation. And I see Lisa, anybody who's been following education in the news knows that there's been a lot of angst and controversy over school boards and school board meetings. And that bubbled up in several states yesterday where they were holding elections. So a lot of the talk today at the Capitol was about politics, and just for the record, Virginia and New Jersey are the only two states in the United States that have what I guess would be called off-year elections. Most of them have them in even number of years. Virginia and New Jersey have them in odd number of years. And in Virginia, it looks like the Republican won there, and he based his campaign a lot on criticism of critical race theory and related issues, on school board indifference to parents concerned about masks, to a variety of things. And I get the sense from talking to some of the Republicans at the Capitol that they see that as a winning issue in Georgia. And I'll let Lisa explain why it's not. But it could include, for example, new ways that parents would be involved in curriculum development or in the use and choice of certain school books, which as Lisa can explain better because she's got hands-on experience with it. I mean, parents already have those kind of rights embedded into the system, but for Republicans, they see this as a winning issue, is fighting for control, parent control of the school boards and process. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, Carly's got the face. Sharon's got the, I'm just not listening to this. I'm not going to say it. And yeah, Joe and I talked about this earlier. And the reality is parents already have a say in our state standards. Every single time we have state standards for any grade level, any subject matter, they are posted for 30 days for public comment. We just had the math standards that it took over a year for the math standards to be revised and adopted because parents and community members kept providing the public comment. I've heard about, well, I don't want my child reading certain books. There is already a process in place for parents to question the materials we use in our classrooms. Now, but we're dealing with people here. Okay, so let's be real. Are we ever, as educators, going to be able to make 100% of our parents and the community happy? No, it's not going to happen. So at some point, we are going to make instructional decisions based on our expertise as educators to teach the standards. And anyone can go to georgiastandards.org. Anyone can go to georgiastandards.org and read the standards we are teaching for every single grade level. exactly what we are teaching. So I feel like there's one partnership in public education that we have to have, and that is parents and teachers working together for our children. And I feel like that this is intended to divide parents and teachers, and parents and community members are listening to people outside of education telling them what is supposedly happening in our classrooms. And my first thing I would say to parents is talk to your child's teacher. Because y'all, I have heard some crazy stuff. People are saying, well, they're teaching this. And I'm like, that's just not happening. It's just not happening. Talk to your child's teacher. Even before that, talk to your child. You know, they know what they're learning in their classroom. They know what they're talking about in their classroom. And if they say, we're not talking about that, we're not talking about that. But that's one of those things, yes, it gets me passionate, it gets me upset, it gets me angry, because the partnership between teachers and educators and parents is the number one key. And I'm going to quote a Facebook meme, because, yeah, I've heard that we're indoctrinating our students. Okay, let's just think about it for a minute. Don't you think if we were going to indoctrinate our students, we would be indoctrinating them to follow directions, to follow the rules at school? Okay, if we had the power, wouldn't that be the first thing? You know, so it upsets me when I hear this, and that it's going to be, once again, we all know if you're an educator, you chose politics, because everything that happens in our classroom, at some point, somebody who is elected makes a decision that impacts that. But there's no reason to make it beyond that and make it as political as it has become.
Lisa, wouldn't it be interesting if they passed a law like this and then the school boards all got waivers for it?
Oh, yeah.
We just want to follow that rule again, that law. Yeah, so.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
So, I mean, the way it's, and I'm reading a little between the lines, but again, it looks like it would be probably a bill that says school districts can't enforce mask mandates, that prohibits the teaching of critical race theory, that gives new avenues for parents to be involved in curriculum and book selection, perhaps. And a lot of it also is still driven by the number of schools that were closed during COVID, which is even last year when we dealt with the private school voucher bills, that was part of the motivation there. And I think for some of the members of the majority caucus, the Republicans, that still was a motivating thing. And especially those districts that went further and had the mask mandate in place longer than some of the others. But so all those converged into this kind of social issue kind of realm that I'm assuming that the Republicans have poll numbers that show them helping them. So we'll see. And I'm not saying that the House Education Committee meeting that may happen this week is going to be on that. I don't know that. They could be two separate things, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bill like that. So, and the other thing, while we mentioned waivers, we are using this perhaps 2-week period to meet with as many legislators as possible on our waiver legislation. I won't go into the whole thing, but just to remind anyone that's on the call or anybody new to the call, Georgia has a very unique situation where virtually any state law governing public education can be overridden or vetoed by a local school board. And the example that we use often, and is probably the easiest to understand, is the maximum number of schools in maximum number of students in a classroom, class size. There is a state law now that tells exactly how many students can be in each class, and it varies by grade, the fewer number of students per kindergarten class versus high school. It varies by subject matter and by the categorization of students in some cases. So there are state laws that regulate the number of students that can be in a class, but we have this very rare, or if not unique, situation where a local school board can ask the Department of Education for a waiver so they don't have to follow the law. And it's not just class size, it's many, many other things that are harming our students. It's harming our students that are English as a second language, the special education students, gifted programs. It's hurting teachers when duty-free lunch is just ignored. It's not granted, and they have basically permission to do that. So we think that this waiver procedure in Georgia is not serving our students well, certainly not serving our teachers well. And that's something we aim to fix. But it's one of those issues when you raise with the legislator, and even when we raise it with some of our own members, they're shocked to learn this, that state law is so easily ignored and dismissed. So we've got a lot of education left to do, but we are using this time at the state capitol to meet with as many members as we can to introduce them to this issue and explain that it is in fact happening, that that your bill that you passed and worked so hard to pass can be overridden in a day by a vote of the school board and basically a rubber stamp approval from the Department of Education. So today we had a number of meetings on that subject. We will continue those. And if you're following, keeping score at home, the bill we've lined up behind is House Bill 518 by State Representative Rebecca Mitchell from Gwinnett County. We're not attempting in this bill to eliminate the whole waiver system, which I'm sure would be our preference. There shouldn't be an ability to waive state law and high standards set in state law and department rules and regulations. But we took some of the real key ones, like class size, duty-free lunch, physical education requirements, to begin the dialogue. And if we can get rid of those and make legislators understand the problem with the system, then maybe we can move to a system that really does serve our students better.
How are the legislators responding when you tell them about these waivers that are removing the responsibility from school boards for the laws that they have passed? What are they saying?
Their initial reaction is shock. That they had no idea, unless they've been served on a school board and then ran for office. It's shock and surprise, and it takes them a little while to get their mind around it, that any law you pass regarding public education can essentially be ignored. We did have one bill this year that passed that actually had a line in the bill that said this cannot be waived. So there's some awareness by at least a couple of senators that worked on that bill and that was an early intervention, or that part of the bill was about early intervention. But yeah, it's total surprise, disbelief. It ought to be, this is not the right word, but emasculating for a legislator to think that their bill that passed two chambers, went through numbers of hearings, was signed by the governor, can be waived so easily. So it's really a shame, the system, but I'm not sure we'll have a lot of friends, frankly, on our side. Some other organizations are going to have administrators in their membership that like the flexibility and still cling. So the origin of the waivers is in financial flexibility during a time of economic hardship, when it may have then been a good idea. I'm not casting judgment one way or the other on it, but the idea was to give school districts flexibility, financial flexibility during the great recession. But these waivers are no longer supposed to be granted so they can move money from account to account or for financial flexibility. They're supposed to be given in exchange for demonstrable proof and academic achievement of the students. But even there, the standards required for that proof are so dismal. I mean, you literally could have rapidly dropping graduation rates, test scores, but you have an increase in enrollment in your AP classes. And that would be enough to satisfy the criteria for academic improvement. I mean, it's a sham. It's a sham. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to get on my soapbox.
While you're on your soapbox, I put in the comments the link to our most recent legislative update that was sent to all of our members bright in the wee hours this morning. So I want you to take a look at that, read it. If you are a member, you should be getting it in your inbox periodically through the special session. Not every day, because as Joe's saying today, there wasn't much to happen today. But you will be receiving your legislative updates. And we have an ask in your legislative update. We want you to join our legislative contact team. And our legislative contact team is going to be made up of members in every single district so that you are that person. My state representative is Representative Darshun Kendrick. She knows me. She has me on speed dial. If there is something about education and it's coming for a vote and she has questions, she calls me or Daniel. He lives in her district as well. But they know me. And we want to have that educator in everybody's district so that they know if it's about public education, this GAE member lives in my district. They are the expert in public education, and they can tell me what the reality is going to be. Because we all know a lot of times things get passed and if it's not waived, the result in our classroom is a whole lot different than what it is if you just read what it says.
I think it's different than the intended result many times.
Yes.
That they, legislators often want things to be positive, but as it turns out, it may not be so.
Right, right. And we want those legislators to have an educator. This is my educator that lives in my district. This is the person that can tell me that, okay, yeah, I understand your intent is this, but when it gets to my classroom, that's not what's going to happen. We had a bill last year that we worked with the people that were trying to do this bill, and it was about discipline and things they wanted to happen before our babies in kindergarten through third grade were suspended. But the way it was written, it wasn't going to have an impact, because the way it was written, the district could say, oh, we've done this. The school can say, oh, we've done this already, because of the language that was used. Because we all know when the language and the letters and the acronyms in education, it's crazy. So that's where we are. And we lost Sharon again. Okay.
Just quickly on that. Sometimes I think if I'm sitting in a member's seat and I'm watching this, I might be intimidated by the ask. We're not asking that you have political experience, that you become some super political hero. You don't have to have a master's in everything education either, but just a hometown person that is beginning to work and build a relationship, and that either can pass along information that we've got or explain a vote, and eventually becomes that person that is on speed dial, or that they trust and can confide in and ask for advice and direction. But don't feel like you got to be some student of political science or, know everything about how the state school board works. You don't. It just takes a little commitment. And I hope you do sign up, because it's important to have a presence in every district in the state. We got members in every district in the state. We need to capitalize on that. ESPs and classroom teachers and everyone.
And like Joe said, you don't have to be an expert on politics. We don't want you to be an expert on politics. We want you to be the expert about what's happening in your school, because that is what we are experts on.
Yep.
What's happening in our school. And yeah, our executive director's watching us, and he put in the comments, get involved. We need you. Yes, we need you. We need you. We need you.
Well, we don't have a voice unless all of our members speak up. That's really the bottom line. We cannot have a collective voice unless our individual members are stepping up to the plate and helping us by speaking out. And these legislators are surprised by finding out that most of the laws they've created have been or are being waived. Then we definitely need to be speaking up for our students and for ourselves. So we absolutely need you to please get involved, and don't be intimidated, because I don't know everything there is to know about politics, but I do know that I can reach out to someone and tell them what's really happening in the school building. And then they have a better understanding when they go to make decisions about education.
And they will appreciate that too.
Yeah, they don't know. They're not in the classrooms. A lot of these, even, the powers that be are not in the classroom, in the trenches, as they say, with the students and doing the work day to day, and they can't see the result of the things that they are passing and the laws they're making. So it's up to us to tell them what's going to work and what's not going to work. Otherwise, they don't know. So please get involved. We would love to have you.
And I'm going to put in the comments our next Rights at Night session, which is November 16th. And that night, we're going to be talking about the legislature and how it all works. So that's a perfect time to learn more. And I promise you, if you're there at night, we're going to ask you again to be on the legislative contact team. So that's just a promise. That's what's going to happen. But I'm putting it in the comments. So please sign up to join us on November 16th. It will be an hour. We promise it's an hour, 6:30 to 7:30. And then we will provide you with even more information after that. So we can begin contacting all of our legislators, and every single one of them can hear from an educator. And hopefully we won't be all contacting them about the mask. But I'm going to say it. We are the experts in education. The experts in public health are the CDC. The CDC guidelines have not changed. Our position as GAE has not changed. We should be following the experts' advice to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And that advice is we should be wearing masks in our school at all times. We should be social distancing. We should be staying home if we're sick, increase the ventilation, frequent cleaning, and being vaccinated when eligible. So the experts in public health are the CDC. And that's the guidance we have, and that's what we should still be following. So Carly, we're going to get depressed already. Yeah, I know. But we need to talk about this because we do have districts that are changing their mask requirements. And the reality is COVID isn't over, y'all. It's not. We are still averaging 757 new cases a day total here in Georgia. 157 of those are children. So yeah, it's still 20% of the cases every day are children. As of today, we have had 194,117 cases in children. There have been 2,204 children hospitalized, and there have been 22 children who have died in Georgia. And we know what to do. The CDC has told us what to do. And that's where I am. I'm so thankful. I'm gonna put a plug in for where I've been today. Y'all see, it's kind of dark behind me. I'm in a motel room. Been visiting schools in Muskogee County this week, and I was so excited. We'll get happy again, Carly. My exciting, great thing for today, I got to read to a second grade class, and it was actually 1.5 second grade classes. And I was, yeah, they have smaller classes at this school. It was wonderful. I got to read to them, and they are still requiring their masks, and they are still wearing their masks. And, you know, I've been in schools the last 2 days. I'll be in a school tomorrow. I was in the elementary school with the young children. When I was in Richmond County, they were requiring masks. And, you know, I think in all the time I've been in schools over the past 3 weeks, I have heard a teacher have to say something to a child about wearing their mask incorrectly, maybe 3 times. You know, if the adults would just stay out, you know, our kids are wearing their masks. How's it going at your school, Carly?
Well, in Fulton County, masks are now optional. So we do have a lot of students that are still wearing them. I wear mine. I noticed that, honestly, I didn't get sick last year. I usually get sick every year, especially when the seasons change. It happens several times a year. I get sinus infections. I get bronchitis. And last year, I didn't have to go to the doctor. So I intend to keep my mask on because it's keeping me out of the doctor's office. And I appreciate that. I don't like having to go to the doctor and be out sick. And then you have to go to work and you're not feeling 100%. So I would much rather feel better and have a mask on. That's just me, but I certainly don't say anything against anybody who chooses not to wear a mask. That is their choice and they have that right. And I'm glad that, I guess I'm glad that the decision makers stopped all the fussing. Mm-hmm. That was getting to be very, I'm trying to think of the right word. It was just very tiresome to have to discuss it all the time and to have such negativity involved with it. It was unfortunate. So I'm thankful that they finally made a situation where people can make their decision, what's best for their family, and it's been working out well so far. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, I'll say it. We should all be wearing our masks still. You know, had mine on all day. Joe, you know, that's I just saw this. Hmm? We still have COVID protocol. We still have COVID protocols at the Capitol, correct?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And they are. Tell us what they are. If I know I'm coming Friday, what do I got to do when I come down there?
The leadership has mandated masks for legislators and staff. I didn't see anything that mandated for visitors. Perhaps because they're beyond their control, it may be an issue for the state building authority. But committee hearings are very, very limited as they have been throughout COVID. The number of seats marked off in blue paint tape leaves very little room left. Legislators are getting tested twice a week. And it's pretty much like it was during the regular session. Access is not, it is difficult to access legislators. There's no rope line. For those of you who've been at the Capitol, the stanchions between the actual chambers and where we often do our work as lobbyists and where citizens often meet their legislators. So yeah, it's still be taken very seriously at the Capitol for sure.
So they're still following the CDC guidelines to protect themselves.
Although the State Board of Education committee meeting today, nobody had masks on. So it seems to vary.
Okay.
Speaking of the State Board of Education, I'll just mention.
Yeah, tell us about that. Give us our report.
So we were there today as one of the committees that was meeting was on charter school systems flexibility, which kind of gets into the waiver issue. I was thinking there might be an announcement today because it was, as we've talked before, we are expecting and we're told this summer that would be an announcement about making vouchers.
No, waivers.
Oh, there I go again. I've done. Yes, thank you for correcting me. Good Lord, waivers. Making waivers automatic so they didn't have to be requested. The same way the charter schools have them, they automatically get waivers from all the state laws, basically. And this apparent effort from the Department of Education would include all strategic waiver systems too. They just automatically get them. I think that'd be a disaster. But so I was looking for something that might come up on that. It did not on this occasion. They did approve 2 amendments to waiver contracts, I believe in Walton County and Gwinnett County. But we're certainly covering that tomorrow, and it'll be streamed on the Georgia Department of Education YouTube site. Is the full State Board of Education meeting. So if you got time, you might check that out. I think it's at 9. It starts at 9 a.m. We'll try to get a report out on that.
Thank you for the reports, because they always do this stuff while we're teaching.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't get to be involved as far as being aware. So I'm so thankful that the 2 of you are actually being able to attend some of these meetings and report back to us so we know what's going on. Yeah. So I'm thankful to see our dues dollars at work.
I appreciate that. And the way they operate at the state school board is a little tricky to follow sometimes, because they, in their rules committee, they do a consent calendar, which is basically when you watch it on TV at the full board meetings, just if you're just watching, it's just a yes or no vote on a consent calendar. So you don't really know unless you follow the process really what they're voting on. Several times Lisa's had to show me that, oh, they actually did vote in because it was in here, and you got to go back to the committee and trace it that way. So yeah, we're going to be at those meetings at every chance we can. Yeah. There was one thing I'll mention also. We did also cover today the House Higher Education Committee meeting.
Okay, Joe, hold that one just a second, because I do need to say something else about the state school board. Mm-hmm. The Rules Committee today had 2 items on the agenda that we're going to be watching, and probably tomorrow, we're in your next legislative alert, we're going to be asking you to send comments. I sent this out last week when we first saw the agenda to the social studies teachers I know and to counselors, because they are proposing changes to the economics standards, which will then be posted for 30 days. So everyone can have their input into the economic standards. They are increasing the personal finance parts of the economic standards, and to make personal finance more prominent in the social studies standards. And they are also changing the definition of school counselors and the requirements for the school counseling offices. So both of those will be for public comment. If they approve posting them tomorrow for public comment, and we want our members to comment on those. If you are a counselor or a social studies teacher and I didn't reach out to you, please send me your comments so we can share them and incorporate that in the comments that GAE makes, but also we'll give you the link to post them yourselves. We have a question. Is there a state policy requiring teachers receive planning periods? If so, and how often? I'm wondering, since duty-free lunch waivers have been allowed, and I would hate to see teachers work an entire day with no break. Well, what you would hate to see is happening all the time. Duty-free lunch is only for kindergarten to 5th grade, and kindergarten to 5th grade teachers are not guaranteed a planning. Middle school and high school teachers are supposed to have the collaborative planning time, which includes a lunch because it's a longer period. Elementary, not getting duty-free lunch because you're eating in the classroom, but partly because of COVID and partly because there's no substitutes and there's nobody to be on duty in the cafeteria. So yes, and Carly, let's say it together. What happens all the time during planning periods from kindergarten to 12th grade? Meetings. Meetings. So no break, that's happening a lot. And that's one reason that educators across the state are, the term I'm hearing is exhausted over and over and over. If you can imagine, school starts at, instruction starts at 7:45 and they are with you other than in elementary school 45 minutes when they're in specials, and you have a meeting during that time and you hope you manage to run by the bathroom. So yeah, that's really what's happening. Okay, now Joe, tell us about the committee meeting today.
Yeah, so we stopped in on the House Higher Education Committee meeting today. There has been, as many of our members know, changes to the tenure law that were adopted by the Board of Education. We wanted to see if that was going to be discussed in the House Higher Education Committee. It does not appear that it was. We weren't able to stay for the entire meeting because of another committee hearing. But that's something else that we're following down in the Capitol, and an example of the type of committee action that's taking place during this special session. I also wanted to let our retired members know that there's a study committee on it's called the Secure Retirement for Georgia Study Committee. It's kind of taking a more of a macro approach so far into look at retirement, but things like, for example, PERS and the Employee State Retirement Fund have been on the agenda before. There's a meeting coming up on November 12th. We'll be represented there, and I believe GAE retired will be there as well. So kind of examples of the kind of things that we're following and that are going on during this special redistricting. I did also want to give a shout out to former Savannah Mayor Edna Jackson. There was a special election last night in Georgia for House District 165. The seat was held by a longtime representative and respected member, Mickey Stevens, who passed away earlier this year. So Edna Jackson has been elected that seat, and we look forward to working with her in the coming days. I assume she'll probably be sworn in during this special session, and then of course try to work with her closely during the regular session as well. So Lisa and I were talking earlier about the state superintendent race. So as everyone probably knows, in 2022, we've got statewide elections in Georgia. The United States Senate seat held by Raphael Warnock is up. You may say, well, he just ran. Really, he was running for the unexpired term of former Senator Johnny Isakson. So this will be his first election to a permanent, a full term in the U.S. Senate. But we also have races for governor, lieutenant governor, up and down, everything from agriculture to labor commissioner and school superintendent. It looks like the current incumbent, Richard Wood, is running for re-election. We do know, or it appears today, that former Superintendent John Barge may be running. And then Lisa, you may know more about the only Democrat that's announced right now, who's on the school board in Cobb County.
Dr. Jaya Howard.
Yeah. So we'll be following that race too. I think historically GAE has been involved in these races for state school superintendent. And hopefully we'll be able to put together forums so our members can make an educated decision on who they wish to support. If we think it's appropriate, we'll make an endorsement in that race and contribute in that race. So, you know, in the context of everything that's going on, that's just another thing that we're keeping our fingers on the pulse of.
And Joe, I think we need to remind everyone watching there. Today's Wednesday. It's red for Ed. Carly's got her red. I've got my red. It's not the R. It's not the D. It's the E. So our endorsement process is not focused on R's or D's. It's focused on E, the education. And all of our endorsements are made based fully on the education platform of the candidates. And I want to remind everyone of that, because that's who we are. We are educators, and our decisions are made based on education and who will be a friend of public education, not what party they belong to or don't belong to.
And that's reflected in our awards. It was in a No magazine issue earlier this year. But we'll be giving out our, I guess I collectively call them Legislator of the Year awards, but they're really in three categories. Friend of Education, which is somebody who's just really worked for education over several sessions. Then we have Legislator of the Year for particular excellence in promoting public education in a general session, then our honor roll for others who've been instrumental and key in fighting for public education. That includes Democrats and Republicans from across the state, from South Georgia all the way to the mountains of Georgia. So we're fortunate to enjoy some support from a diverse number of legislators. Lisa, the last thing I've got is just kind of, you know, the date reminders. I think it's okay to tell everyone that on November 22nd, which is the Monday of Thanksgiving, we'll be hosting with NEA a town hall meeting online with United States Representative Carolyn Bordeaux. That ought to be a great event. Tentatively, it's at 6 p.m. for an hour. There'll be room for Q&A. We'll give you an opportunity to submit questions. But that'll be a great event where we can look forward to doing other town hall meetings with some of our federal elected officials, other congressmen, Senator Warnock, and others. The regular session, as I mentioned earlier, starts January 10th. I hope you're signed up for our LCT, or Legislative Contact Team, by then. And then our day at the Capitol is Thursday, February 24th, which will run about from 8 a.m. till probably 2 o'clock or so. And hopefully, if COVID permits, we'll be at the Capitol, shaking hands and meeting legislators face to face and lobbying for the issues that are important to educators and to a solid, successful school system.
We don't have a link yet for the Carolyn Bordeaux. When we get it, it'll be in your legislative alerts. I did put the link for the day at the Capitol in the comments. So if you want to go ahead and sign up, you can now. But we got to talk. We had one more comment, and I want to talk about it because it's another thing that's coming up. We had someone who I happen to know and is an ESP, who said monitoring a cafeteria full of students with masks down and talking is truly unfair to the monitors. And yes, we all agree. We do. Our ESPs throughout this pandemic have really stepped up. They have been the heroes that have kept our students fed, kept our buildings clean, done everything they can to keep us safe and healthy inside our schools.
Driving our students to and from home.
Yes, driving, getting them here. Our ESPs have been the ones who were delivering food when we were all staying home, making sure that our children were fed, and they continue to do that. So 2 weeks from today, the 17th, is ESP Day. So we will have ESP guests that night, and that is American Education Week. So we encourage everyone to celebrate American Education Week. There's a different activity every day. Excuse me. But Wednesday is ESP Day. So we want you to take some time and recognize the ESPs in your school and in your life. If you are not in a school building, we will be recognizing them on Facebook Live that night. So we're going to have something very fun. Not sure exactly how we're going to do that yet, but we'll come up with a way to recognize the ESPs from across the state, because we know that we could not do what we do without them. And I'll take this opportunity. I've been saying this a lot the last couple of weeks. At GAE, when we say educator, that includes our ESPs. That's everybody. If you are close enough in the day to touch a child at their school, on the bus, wherever you are with our students, then you are an educator. And you are able to join GAE. We'd ask you now, we haven't done this in a while, but we would, if you are not yet a member, we want you to join GAE and help us do the right thing for our students and our colleagues. And Sharon popped in and popped out. She's having technical difficulties this evening.
Maybe Carly can give us an analysis of the World Series.
Oh, yeah. We're almost done. Carly's excited. Go ahead. There you go, Carly.
Go Braves.
Oh, man. Go Braves indeed. Last night, they were awesome. I was so afraid that the Astros were going to come back. I kept sitting there thinking, oh no, just we're ahead. And I was reminiscent to the game before where we were ahead with a grand slam and they came back and won. And I was just on pins and needles. I kept thinking, and oh my goodness, I was so proud of them. I'm so excited that they're coming home and we're going to have parades and activities, so much so that most of the metro area of Georgia has shut down schools on Friday. I know Fulton, Cobb, Clayton, I don't even know what other ones, but I mean, just all of us are going to be celebrating and supporting our Braves. And if you weren't a Braves fan, and as a student today said in my classroom, well, I'm not a Braves fan, but I am today because we're not in school on Friday. Braves.
Exactly, Carly. That's the best part, because I know students and educators are really tired right now. We have one more question we need to answer before we're done. And the question is, have any of the school districts and or state of Georgia mentioned raising teacher salaries for 2022-23 school year, and are bonuses on the table? Salary for 2022-2023 process begins in the legislature January 10th. The state budget will have any raises, bonuses, etc. And I would encourage you to contact your local association, because I know a lot of the local districts are doing some bonuses now. I received an email yesterday from our local president in Polk County that they have been able to get bonuses for teachers and ESPs that they are going to start getting right before Christmas, which will be nice.
Yeah.
We are in Fulton as well.
You're getting one in Fulton.
The teachers are getting one and our ESPs are getting one. So I'm super excited about that.
Right. So the bonuses are happening now, and I know a lot of them are using the American Rescue Plan COVID relief money for those. A raise will start in the state budget, and that's at the state capitol and the legislators. And that's one more reason we need an educator, in a GAE member in every legislator's district. So when they start debating the budget, you can be that person. Yeah, let's talk. Let's talk about these raises and how important they are, and not just for teachers, but for all educators, our ESPs as well. And so we have.
And I'm watching our governor.
Yeah, he promised us 5,000, and we've gotten 3. He owes us 2.
He told me today, Carla, he's watching you too.
Okay, y'all, we have gone over tonight. We've just been talking, but I hope that everyone that's watching has gotten the information they need, and that you will join us for the legislative contact team, and that you will also pay attention. If you're not already a member, I'm putting that link in the comments. And everyone have a good day tomorrow and Friday. Those of you who are going to be celebrating the Braves, whether you are a fan or not, I hope you have a restful day. And that bonus, this is almost like a snow day. You know, we used to get snow days out of the blue. Well, we're not getting snow days anymore. So you're going to get a Braves day. So enjoy it, and everyone have a great week. And we will see you here in 2 weeks for ESP Day and our next Facebook Live.